So, okay. Hi, my name is Veer. I work at Digital Heritage Netherlands. First of all, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Peter and you for inviting me and allowing me to speak here. It's quite an honor. Digital Heritage Netherlands is an organization dedicated to digital strategies for the heritage sector in the Netherlands. And it does very little operational tasks, but heritage and location. The project that I'm working on is one different. Just to show, I only have 6 slides, so I'll be finished quite soon. We developed a project, a semantic web project that allows heritage institutions in the Netherlands to bring their data to the semantic web through us in a location-based approach. So any heritage institution wanting to participate is welcome. We accept all the data that they want to share, provided that it has a locational component. With this, we want to show that how interesting it is to combine data based on their spatial and temporal convergence, union, etc. Our main project partners are the State Service for Cultural Heritage, that's the RCE. We have Bibliotheek.nl, the Digital Libraries organization, and we work together with Rein Society, an innovative sort of incubator company based in Amsterdam. So we are very much interested in semantic web technology based on spatial, temporal, and thematic aspects of cultural heritage data. We're not just putting out a Sparkle endpoint. We are to develop tools for visualization and crowdsourcing. That crowdsourcing part is not also not just a nice to have thing. It is, and it's not just a goal. It's a goal in itself. It's not only a means to a goal. Crowdsourcing enables people to participate or get in contact with heritage data that they can use, can meet, can work with, and feel they can interact with in a meaningful way. We're pretty much dedicated to open source and open data where this is possible and viable. But also, we are very much concerned with sustainable business models. We finished the project in July next year, and if there are no suitable business models, we just deliver a project for which there is no future. So developing business models with heritage institutions and the next institution that will adopt heritage and location is very much an issue. So, I want to thank Frans as well for his brilliant introduction on the spatial component. At the point where I had started investigating the spatial part of the project, the TUC standard was still pretty new, and it still is, but there have been a lot of developments. But I felt a lot of need to work with the standard as it was presented. How does it work? What does it allow me to do? And so I started with a UCCAM, a Sesame extension, TUC extension, which thanks to my visit to the Linking Geospatial Data W3C OGC conference in London beginning March has expanded pretty quickly. So I would like to thank Kostis and you for that as well. Things are developing, and they are developing pretty fast, luckily for us, because it will be just in time. I experimented with two data sets that I wanted to impose on each other. I worked with data from the State Service for Cultural Heritage. By education, I'm an archaeologist. So I work with archaeological data that I actually understand. I know that 30,000 archaeological monuments, sites, polygons, and 121,000 archaeological observation points, on which I wanted to do some work and see where it got me.
What does it mean, observation points?
Well, those are mostly finds, or mostly finds, stray finds, things people picked up and reported to the State Service.
Like the sites in Hall in the UK.
Yeah, those are pretty sparse in this data set. Yeah. The first order of business was to have a simple spatial filter and then to see how spatial joints would hold up. Luckily, I had already some reference material from the GeoNode project and more recently from the Geographica benchmark. But the GeoNode project delivered the first tangible numbers in what spatially enabled or geosparkle specifically data stores would deliver. Now, we're not just focused on geosparkle per se as a functional extension to Sparkle. We would support other types of extensions as well, just as long as it helps to get us to where we want to go. Because that second spatial join thing, that it may look a bit trivial, but it isn't. Coming from the present situation, it's pretty easy to illustrate. The present situation, there is one municipality of Amsterdam. It can be found in GeoNames, for example. And you can consider it as having one single contour, polygon contour, or multi-polygon contour, as the case is, for the municipality. But for an historical situation, this is not the case. There are many different versions of the municipality of Amsterdam. They may not be valid anymore, but from the heritage point of view, they are still valid, since there are many data sets around from heritage institutions for which there is data where those previous versions of those contours are pretty much valid. So from one current place, we actually have a service in the Netherlands that translates to municipalityhistory.nl that hosts, among which a JSON REST interface and a website for all known previous versions of municipalities. And it turns out that they have 8 separate contours for the municipality of Amsterdam. So from a simple spatial filter, from our perspective, it becomes a spatial join. And this is something we have to take into account for basically any query that is put to us from users that includes the location, which is pretty much our job, is that we have to take in account all previous versions of municipality places, street names, etc. So these joins are important. on my my findings so far, and there's a very explicit disclaimer to not have any lawsuits. At this moment, there's no general validity for any of these conclusions for me, but I put them together anyway. They run on 3 different hardware platforms, so there's no comparison anywhere. But it came out that the heritage and location TUC implementation runs on our own virtual private server with 4 gigabytes of RAM. So it's all very small scale. It's not optimized. Neither is the Virtuoso I was testing against, which is run by Pilot, which is interesting to know. Is an open semantic web exploration initiative in the Netherlands for any organization who wants to participate in exploring semantic web technologies. They run a server Virtuoso implementation for us. The third is the test repository for Strabon, which Costas has kindly made available for us. And I tested with, very limited with the Virtuoso linked open data repository as well, but it is included here. And the preliminary result is that the TUC performed pretty well on the simple spatial filter, but not so good on the spatial join. It takes less than a second for a small area for filtering relevant results, but up to 30 seconds or more to employ the join. The Virtuoso performance on a simple join simple filter was reasonable, and the one on the was comparable to the TUC performance. But the point in polygon spatial join is still work in progress. It wasn't able to complete it. The Strabon is a bit of a mystery, because the simple filter is currently not isn't executing that well. In contrast to the more complex spatial join. So I'll ask Costas later how this is possible, but it must have something to do with query planning in Strabon.
Well, actually, it is a shared server that runs approximately 20 installations of Strabon, and there was some assignments to some students. So perhaps you had bad luck on the first thing, because at the same time, more or less 30 students were using some of the rest installations. So it wasn't a dedicated server or whatever.
Yeah, well, the results seem to be consistent, but we'll see. So far, but the real issue here is that we need a good benchmark that that looks like a bit like the GeoNo study, but this is for more spatially enabled IDF stores. It makes a nice including loading and different spatial join types, and a good comparison of spatial functions if they're not geosparkle conform. So the last subject is the subject of time, which I'm only starting to investigate. I've only started last week into this subject because I couldn't avoid it anymore. But also, for a heritage point of view, dates and times are pretty problematic, as it turns out. The all-important W3 time ontology is made for description of temporal content of web pages and temporal properties of web servers. Well, considering that we have data before price, this isn't exactly compatible. Then there's the SciDoc cultural reference model. Yeah. No, what? Complicated
complicated reference model. Yeah. Complicated reference model.
Yeah, complicated reference model. Thank you. Which has a property E50 date, which has data type XML schema string, which doesn't bring us very far as it is not specific enough. The timeline ontology has an add date as XML schema date formatted. But as it turns out, there are hardly any implementations that allow parsing of dates before 1900, which is it has to do with the Gregorian calendar, which was implemented in 1855. It should do more if you look at the ISO 6801 specification on this, which is the most commonly used. But it runs out pretty quick. So the question is also is there anything around that that would have us make temporal joins on dates before Christ or even the Middle Ages. So any help is pretty much appreciated, and benchmarking would be nice.
I can talk to you later about how we've implemented take union using the equivalent class and union of constructs.
And that would stretch to dates before 1900 as well.
But if we look at the market for dates before 1900, it's pretty small.
Yeah, it's quite weird here.
Well, it is not. XSD date allows you to do this very simply. You use minus whatever. The only peculiarity you have to say minus 0001. Years you have to have at least 4 digits. And you have 3 types: G-year, G-year, month, and then date, XSD date. At least Tolling handles this fine. I mean, we've used this with the British Museum. Breaking all of their data to see those CRMs.
Of course. Yeah, I'd love to hear your input because it's obviously it's an essential point for us.
Well, until about a year ago, Olin didn't have any optimization for looking between, like saying, give me objects that have a date in a certain interval. But now it has the so-called literal index. Yeah. So yeah, these obvious optimizations are. It's fast at finding things that happen continuously.
Yeah. Do you have to do with any other type of dates other than Gregorian? Julian calendar, disaster?
Well, do we? Well, at present we're still quite busy on the requirements elicitation process, and we we're not working with much data at present yet. So I'm not sure yet, but I don't think it's very likely because the heritage institutions themselves have to have workable data on their own assets as well, which would be very hard if they start using calendars other than Gregorian ones.
It depends on from when a document is. It's like 1600s, then it's you don't know unless you know the person, or even in Sweden until the 1780s, quite difficult to figure out if it's Julian or Gregorian calendar date in some of the documents.
It would be something to take into account that it's alright.
Well,
to not take dates in documents at face value.
I guess you must have in your application going lots of inclusion in your time interval. So you have uncertainty quite often, and then you have some interval, and then you want to see everything. all intervals which intersect with the particular interval. Is that right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of requires, if you have lots of that, that requires a special index, a little bit like the spatial.
Yeah. So we expect people wanting to have results from the province of Utrecht from the early Middle Ages.
Right, Other than that, it's retro should have a Julian day-based thing, so it goes to -5,000 or something, and then launch walking into the future. So that the rate should be there for the data type.
Right. Thank you. Any more questions? Right. Thank you.
Okay.